This is our last debate today, and these are the candidates for Whatcom County Executive. There are 4 candidates on your ballot for this race, and I would like to introduce those candidates: Jim Boyle, Karen Burke, Tony Larsen, Satpal Sidhu. The executive provides for an accountable and responsive county government by ensuring efficient, effective, and economical administration in accordance with the county charter, the Washington State Constitution, and other applicable federal, state, and local laws, as well as county policy. Duties include supervising all administrative office and executive departments and appointing members to boards and commissions. The Whatcom County Executive serves a 4-year term, and the annual salary is $185,985. Candidates today will have up to 2 minutes each for an opening statement. They will have 1 minute to respond to each question, and they will make a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate has a challenge card. If you would hold those up, please. Candidates may use this card to challenge or rebut their opponent's response. The challenging candidate will have 45 seconds to state the challenge, and his or her opponent will have 45 seconds to respond to the challenge. Each candidate may use his or her challenge card just 1 time. Timers today are Carol Como, Judy Hopkinson, and Michelle Kopcha, and they're down here in front. They'll be tracking time. The timers will flash a yellow sign when 15 seconds remain and a red sign to signal time is up. If a candidate continues to talk, a bell will be rung to signal stop talking. We ask that candidates be respectful of the time allotted due to the limited amount of time that we have and our desires to include as many questions as possible. An important goal of the League of Women Voters is civil discussion. To that end, we also ask that those in the audience be respectful and refrain from comments, as well as hold their applause until the conclusion of the debate. Some questions were prepared by our League Question Committee. We also encourage members of the audience to provide written questions, which should be addressed to all of the candidates. Ushers are available to pick up your questions and bring them to the screening table. Ushers, would you wave your hands, please? So if you raise your hand, they'll bring you a card. You can write your question, and then they'll bring it down to the question screeners. And the questions are being screened today by League members Cindy Madigan and Heather Mackay-Brown. The screening is done for legibility, so I can read the question, and clarity to avoid duplication. Each candidate will be asked to respond to the same question during the debate portion. The order of candidates with respect to the questions and answers has been determined in advance by the League organizers to ensure a random and fair sequence. So, with the rules covered, let's get started. Opening statement. Candidate Sidhu, if you would please give your 2-minute opening statement.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum today and for your long history of promoting voter education. And thanks all of you who took time and come here and all those people who are listening at home. Why am I running for the county executive position? First, I have a passion to serve my community, and that's my record for the last 25 years. Second, over the last 40 years, I have acquired unique skills and experiences which have prepared me to take on the challenge of this role. I bring the perspective of an engineer, a business executive, an educator, small business owner, and a county council member. I'll be a proactive leader who listens to people and implements policies based on our community's shared values. I have a proven track record of bringing people together to address our common issues and getting things done. Like this, bringing many communities together to honor all immigrants through Arch of Healing and Reconciliation. At BTC, I had the vision of baby boomers retiring from the local refineries and created a new degree program which enabled over 1,200 local residents to have these $100,000 jobs. The creation of the Business and Commerce Advisory Committee to actively support economic development in our region. As county executive, my priorities, not in any order, are affordable housing and growth management, services for mental health and addiction, water for fish habitat, farmers and water quality, business growth and job creation, and reduce carbon footprint. I look forward to today's discussion and opportunities to share my vision with all the residents of Whatcom County. Thank you.
Candidate Burke, your 2-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. I've lived in Whatcom County for 25 years. I moved from Pueblo, Colorado, straight to Glacier, Washington, where I worked at Graham's grocery store and did quite a bit of skiing. I live on the Mount Baker Highway with my wife, Paula, and currently we're personally feeling in our household the impacts of affordable housing. We have my son and his girlfriend living with us. They have trouble finding affordable housing, as well as my friend Tasha and her 2 small children. So I like that, though, because I really like a pretty busy, rambunctious household. I am running not as a politician, but as a community leader. I'm currently the executive director at Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services. I come to leadership not as an I person, but as a person who builds teams and systems that flourish in the long term. At Lummi Nation, when I started as the court director, we had 1 judge and 1 clerk. And when I left 6 years later, I had helped to build a 4-department system that had national recognition as a leader. And at DVSAS, we've tripled in size, tripled our budget, as well as our programming, including adding 2 additional houses and services throughout the county. So the top 3 issues that I hear in talking with voters are affordable housing, homelessness, and concerns over climate change. In my role as the executive, I have 2 priorities, which one is going to be to get us strategically looking at those problems from the big picture. We can't solve those issues singly and one at a time in what I call popcorn management, whatever's the hottest button right now. We have to look strategically from the big picture. And second, I want to make sure to build those teams and systems that empower people by making sure our advisory teams and our departments are aligned and have a good system of communication and accountability so that they can last into the long term, and that gives us a system to get things done and to handle the problems that come our way. Thank you.
Candidate Larsen, your 2-minute opening, please.
Thank you. I know we're going to talk about a lot of issues today, so I thought I would use the opening to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Bellingham. I went to school here. I put myself through college here. I've raised my family here. I'm married with 2 children. They're college age, and my hope is that at some point they'll be able to come back and be able to afford to live here as well. I graduated from Western Washington University with a degree in economics and finance. I started my business career shortly after graduating. As the owner of multiple businesses, I've been in an executive role for the past 30+ years. I've managed people, I've built teams, I've organized projects, I've developed and managed budgets, and I've been financially responsible for my employees and many projects we've launched. I own and operated the Bellingham Bells Baseball Club, and I'm owner of Business Pulse magazine. I'm the founder and president of the Whatcom Business Alliance, where we've focused our efforts not only on creating a prosperous community, but also on transitioning young people into good job opportunities and focusing our efforts on supporting nonprofit organizations that help the most vulnerable. I've been actively involved in serving Whatcom County in many ways over the past 35 years. I've served in leadership positions as a volunteer on more than 30 local boards, nonprofit boards, and committees. I've served as a local school board member, and I've also been on the Whatcom County Council. In my current role as president of the Whatcom Business Alliance, I am responsible for leading business leaders from virtually every local industry. I also work with officials from the county and the cities, the Port of Bellingham, and with nonprofit directors. I mention my experience and my skills as an executive because the county executive is a management position. It's a leadership position. I believe citizens of Whatcom County expect and deserve to have a county government that serves them. The county should be well run, it should be responsive, it should be efficient, it should be accountable, and it should be focused on addressing the challenges we'll likely talk about a little bit today. I love Whatcom County. For my entire adult life, both in my businesses and personal life, I've been focused on making Whatcom County a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Boyle, your 2-minute opening statement, please.
Great. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's a beautiful day, and for you guys to give up your time, I really appreciate it. Also, for the League of Women Voters, you guys have put a lot of time in today and for getting this out, and I also appreciate those of you who are listening remotely. There are two themes I want to kind of really talk about as we share our time together. First of all is unity, and second is leadership. And what I mean by unity, Elizabeth, my wife, and I have lived in Whatcom County for about 19 years. And what I've noticed over that time period is a growing discourse between our separation between our communities. You know, we have folks in the county don't believe the city's listening to them. We have farmers and environmentalists. We have the BP Cherry Point folks worried about their jobs. The number one thing that I can bring to this position is bridging those gaps and bringing those conversations together. We're going to have a lot of conversations today about the different issues, but I think it's a leadership issue that it's going to be most important. For me, for the last 20 years, I've worked in nationally, internationally, and locally on organizations going through a time of transition to kind of help them bring the stakeholders together and kind of move to a common solution. And that's what's needed in Whatcom County. The other thing I want to touch on briefly is not all the issues, because I think we'll have a chance to talk about those, but also how I will govern. And I think because you're not going to know the issues we're going to have to deal with 2, 4, maybe even 8 years from now, but I want you to know how I'm going to relate to people. And my number one priority, and this came from my early political mentor, a guy named Paul Wellstone, who believed we all do better when we all do better. And that's a central core of our administration. That's what we want to bring. County government has the opportunity to lift people up, to lift all of us up. And his role as your county executive, I'll be a leader in that process. Thank you.
We'll begin our questions now. The first question, the first response will be for candidate Burke, and all the candidates will respond to the same questions. You'll have 60 seconds. What is an asset you have, unknown to most, that distinguishes you to be county executive?
I will answer that by saying it's probably not unknown to most, but I have an incredible drive. When I see a need, I will work tirelessly to fulfill that need. And one example of that is building additional shelters for domestic violence survivors. In my tenure, we've brought 2 additional shelters online because we were always full, and saying no to people who their only choice is homelessness or being in an unsafe environment is just not acceptable to me. And so I partnered with Lydia Place, and we purchased a 3-building property, and we refurbished it, found the funding and refurbished it, and put those online so that additional people could be safe. So a passion and a drive that is tenacious, and I will definitely, there's no one that's going to work harder than I will.
Candidate Larsen?
Yes, I don't know if there's very many things that are unknown because I'm fairly transparent, but I really have I love Whatcom County. I really have a passion for our community, and I've always had a passion for young people. I think that as we talk about some of the issues today, we're going to talk about the issues that we're addressing now, but I believe as county executive, you need to be a visionary, and we need to start going after some of the root challenges associated with these. And one of the areas that we can really go to is our young people. And you know, when I bought the Bellingham Bells Baseball Club, you know, it gave me an opportunity to use that as a vehicle to connect with young people. I was a Big Brothers Big Sister, or I was a big brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And really got our team involved in investing in things for young people, and I think that there's going to be a real opportunity to connect young people with job opportunities and a number of other things.
Candidate Boyle.
The trait that I think I'd like to emphasize or talk about is empathy. What was really interesting, just in my drive here, I stopped off at a convenience store just to get something to drink, and there was the clerk and the customer were talking about housing. And the clerk was saying, listen, after the end of my pay everything, after I pay my housing, I have $100 left for food and all this kind of stuff, right? And she was just really upset, and the customer was saying, listen, I only have, I have to live in my parents' basement to make it work. So I come over, I give them my brochure, and I say, hey, I'm a county exec, I have all these answers. And I started rattling off these answers. They didn't care. What they were mostly interested in was somebody was listening to them, somebody heard them, and somebody was trying to understand the issues. And I think as county exec, you need to be that unifying role where people can feel like their voice is being heard. Thank you.
Candidate Sadhu.
Yes, yeah. You may know all the results of my distinguished work, but what is behind that, I'll share that with you, which is not known. First thing, first generation immigrant, I came and adapted to this country. I came 10,000 miles away. Then I've been an engineer, professional engineer, and then I became dean at Bellingham Tech. I've never worked in education, but I was the most successful dean in the history of Bellingham Technical College. There's a process behind it. Then I became president of a solar company. Then I gathered several communities to build the Arch of Healing and Reconciliation. And then I got elected to county council. So all these things have a common thread. I understand the process and hard work, which people don't see. It's like an iceberg. You see the tip of the end result, but the work which goes in, that's what I do, and that's what I'm distinguished at. Thank you.
Question number 2. This will go first to candidate Larsen. Would you support the county passing a resolution acknowledging a planetary climate emergency and pledging to consider it when making decisions? Please explain your answer.
Well, the resolution process, that would be something that the county council would do. That's not a county executive role, but I would say this. I would look at climate change is real, and it's an issue. And I think that I would look at it from the perspective of what the county executive could do. Some of the things that I think are kind of low-hanging fruit is that we could, there obviously should be an aggressive and vibrant recycling program through the county. The county should be a leader on everything it can do for energy conservation in all of its buildings. It could take a look at the fleet. We've got some hybrid vehicles. There are some, obviously, we couldn't we couldn't transition over to hybrid, but I would look at an investment in that over time. But I think the primary issue as it relates to climate change in Whatcom County is that we ought to look at the impact that it's having on Lake Whatcom. That's our drinking water. As the temperature warms, it's very difficult for oxygen to get through the surface down to the bottom where it needs to be. And I think that there are some innovative ways to address that, and I think we can do that.
Candidate Boyle.
The answer is yes. We are in a climate crisis. Whatcom County needs to respond aggressively to it. Currently in my role as Vice President for the Organization for Tropical Studies, I'm working on climate change issues that are affecting the tropics. So as county exec, I think Tony is right to identify what can you do. A couple of things we can do right out of the gate is we need to kind of prepare Whatcom County for the climate that's coming, the change. May mean we have to change some of our infrastructure, some of our zoning. We need to support the raspberry industry to develop a new kind of a breed of raspberries that are more heat and drought tolerant so we can address climate change and still have a thriving economy. And then we also need to be leaders in climate change. So that means reducing the energy use of our buildings, trying to get the county government to be 100% renewable energy, and really reducing our emphasis on transportation.
Candidate Sadhu.
Climate emergency is obvious that it is an existential threat. Passing the resolution, I will support the resolution like that. But that's not where the work starts, ends. That's where the work starts. We have been doing this for 150 years, polluting, and now we're trying to fix it in 1, 2, 3, or with the resolutions. I think the real work needs to get done. And that is, the first thing is, if I am so lucky to be in that position, I will order a complete audit of county operations so that we have a baseline of our carbon footprint, how we can improve that. Honor the advisory committee work and plant 1 million trees in next 5 years. That's a minimal start to address this challenge.
Candidate Burke.
Yes, we definitely have a lot of community and individual work to do to address climate change. We are in an emergency situation and we need to get busy and get busy very quickly. So we have a climate change advisory committee. We need to make sure that that's well balanced, and it includes industry workers, environmentalists, scientists, and also people from diverse backgrounds. And we need to prioritize and implement those recommendations as quickly as possible, and support recommendations that really empower us so that we can respond to this global crisis, such as really supporting WTA moving to electric buses and additional county-wide electric charging stations and parking for shared rides, and also land use policies that reduce the reliance on fossil fuels and also adapt to climate change. So, and then individually, we really need to support initiatives for individual carbon reductions, including things for home efficiency and transportation changing and planting trees. So thanks so much.
Question 3 will go first to candidate Boyle. What do you think Whatcom County could or should do to help refugees and immigrants?
Whatcom County should be a very welcoming place for immigrants and for all communities. The immigrant population right now is one of our drivers economically for us, but more important than that, they're drivers of us socially. They're drivers of us in creating diversity and increasing our network and our culture. It's those type of things that really enrich all of us, and we need to make a home for everybody here in Whatcom County that they feel safe and embracing. I really am glad to hear that the Sheriff's Department is supportive of the Keep Washington Working Act, which, the role of the sheriff should be in keeping the community safe. They do not have a role in immigration, and I appreciate Sheriff Elfo's stance on that. Our communities are growing, and we need to be a welcoming place. And I think as your county exec, you can be a champion for that and really set a tone throughout the whole organization. Thank you.
Candidate Sadhu.
Yes. I think that this is a shame for America, the way we have been handling our immigration process and where we have come to in the last few years. The mess which is made at federal level, these local governments are challenged to solve the issues with no money, with no other help. But I would say that we must uphold the 5497 bill which just passed, Keep Washington Working. We must offer services to the extent possible we can to the people who are here. And nobody in America should go hungry, and nobody should be without any services. And I support that, and we will do everything possible to help these people and make it a safer place for them.
Candidate Burke.
Yeah, so I am open to exploring all ways possible to make sure Whatcom County is safe and also is perceived by everyone as safe and equitable, regardless of their immigration status. I've seen the problems in my work at Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services when people feel that they can't call law enforcement when there's a problem in their community or in their home for fear of triggering an ICE raid. That happens even if they have immigration papers. They're worried that they'll trigger ICE raids in their community. And that makes all of us less safe. We need to make sure that services and protections are available for everyone, that good people are supported, and that those who are causing harm are held accountable. So we need to support the Keep Washington Working Act locally, and we'll definitely do that. And I would like to see a neutral body of oversight so that individuals who feel they have experienced a problem feel safe and supported in coming forward. Thanks.
And candidate Larsen.
Whatcom County is and always has been a very welcoming place. The people in Whatcom County are kind, they're respectful to people. As we talk about immigration, we don't have borders on, north and south, although actually we do have a border north, but Whatcom County does not have a border on it. And really the broader issue that we're addressing is population growth. I mean, population is just, the growth has been extraordinary. And even with the growing population, we've got an extraordinary skilled worker problem in Whatcom County. Employers are really challenged about expanding because they simply cannot find workers. I was meeting with a farmer a week and a half ago who had literally just brought in 200 immigrants on the HB1 visa program for his farm. And there are a number of farmers that literally can't find people to do the work. They produce the food not only for our community but for the world, but yet they're challenged. So we need to be open-minded and creative about how we address the labor problem, but also welcoming to all people.
Okay, question number 4 will begin with candidate Sadhu. What kinds of development or expansion would you support for Cherry Point?
I think Cherry Point has the legacy industries which have done very well for our community and the people. They have the highest paying jobs, but at the same time, we cannot let these refineries to become a shipping points for crude oil where we have all the liabilities and no benefits. I think that the county council, what is working on today, is actually will make these industries clean as well as make them more competitive. So that's one thing. The second thing is any discussion about Cherry Point, we must include tribal voice of tribal people. It's their land. We must respect that, and they should be equal partners in all these discussions. I would like to see that more newer industries come to Cherry Point, create more jobs.
Candidate Burke.
Yeah, so I think with the issues around Cherry Point growth, we've been served a false choice that either we can support the environment or we can support jobs and individuals. And we need to back out of that argument that it's just come head to head. The best protection for jobs and the best protection for our local economy is to get ahead of this changing industry and make sure that we take a very strong national stance even as leaders in transitioning to the clean energy economy. So the industry is changing, that globally, many have signed on to the Paris Accord. Locally here in Washington, we're committed to reducing our fossil fuel reliance, so the industry, we will feel an impact. And to protect workers and the environment, we need to not only attract new industries, but we also need to support the refineries in continuing their safety and environmental standards, and to really embrace them in transitioning, in any kind of innovation and transitioning to clean energy. That's the best way that we're going to get ahead and support ourselves.
Candidate Larsen.
Yes. First, we need to understand that Cherry Point, everybody thinks of it as the fossil fuel. The refineries are out there, but there are 10 different industries that are out there. We've got wood products, we've got food manufacturing, we've got primary metals. We do have the refineries, we have energy. There's a lot of companies out there. All of them serve and provide legal products that we all use. And there's just a premise. They're selling the legal product. It's highly regulated, and they generate a lot of income for the community. $370 million in taxes they paid last year that build our schools. They support our fire departments. Our libraries, our conservation districts. And what we need to really do is work with them on this energy transformation. Right now, P66 is looking at a renewable energy plant, building it adjacent to the existing plant. It could be a $1 billion investment, create jobs, give us exactly what we need. But in order to make that happen, we've got to work with them and not stifle them.
And Candidate Boyle.
You know, first of all, I want to really thank the question. Often the question that we get asked is, are you going to be opposed to this? Are you going to be opposed to that out of Cherry Point? And it was really nice to have a positive kind of spin. What are you going to be for? And for me, I think some of the issues that we've talked about is we do need to transition away from fossil fuels and building out alternative energies and renewable energies out on the refineries. But that is, as Tony mentioned, that is only one of the areas that is out there. The biggest thing that Whatcom County can do is help businesses that currently exist to expand. We can do that by helping them with the permitting process, economic development dollars, but attracting new businesses into Whatcom County can be more difficult than allowing local businesses to expand. So I think out in that area, we can also have data storage and so maybe expand some of our agricultural look because it is a zoned industrial area. The one thing we want to be careful of is we cannot increase tanker traffic or shipping traffic in the Salish Sea. Thank you.
Okay. If you have, we're over halfway now. If you haven't gotten your question in and you want to get one in, raise your hand so the ushers can get a card to you and pick up your question. Question number 5 will go to candidate Burke first. If elected, how would you seek a balance in managing our watersheds for ecological goods and services, human health and welfare?
So the first thing with our watershed is I really think we need to start with better education community-wide and stakeholder engagement. We're all part of the Nooksack Basin and our water sources are connected. So each of us is impacting someone else with pollution and consumption. So we need to make sure that we're protecting water so we have enough for people, fish, farms, and shellfish. I really look forward as the county executive to providing strong leadership for the WIRA 1 board so that we can implement our current work plan. Within it has many solutions to protect our water sources, especially in the Nooksack River. And also I want to look at publicly managed water banking and water exchanges to implement those relatively quickly to get relief to the farmers. I will be working really hard with the Department of Ecology and advocating for decisions on the rural water development issues that we can all live with, a solution that will work for us. And in the future, I'll provide leadership to where we keep our local decisions local.
Candidate Larsen.
Yeah, on the water issue, we've got a couple issues. We've got really talk about the water quantity and the water quality, and out in the county, from an industrial standpoint, our industries and our farmers, they need water. That if that problem was easy to solve, it would have been solved. There have been good people working on that, but we really need to bring all the parties together to really have some fruitful conversations that would include the tribe, the farmers, and industry. On another piece of the water quality, one of the areas that's I think should be really important to all of us. It moves us back to Whatcom Lake Whatcom, and that is because it represents 50% of our drinking water. And I would support strongly investment in, and we've already had investments in stormwater treatment, and we've had phosphorus reduction in filters. But there's some new innovations that I think we could use, and that is infusing oxygen into the water, and really not just looking about how phosphorus is getting into the water, but how do we take phosphorus out that's already there. There's some innovative examples from around the country, and I'd like to talk about those.
Candidate Boyle.
I'd like to use my answer to kind of show you how I would govern as kind of a model for that. So when faced with water, we all know water is a big issue. So the first thing that I've done is I've met with many of the stakeholders, the Lumbee Nation, farmers, industrial users, home builders, and homeowners to try to get their sense of what the issue is and what would work for them. And the notion that's been kicked around, like these water issues have been talked about for 30 plus years. And so it's these aren't new issues. And we've talked about using put a dome over the Nooksack and use, how can we kind of just look at this system and tear it apart, tease it apart? Well, instead of talking about it, let's start doing it, all right? Let's take a small basin and let's look at the water rights within that basin. One creek, I would use California Creek, which flows up by Blaine. It's a small little system. And see who has water rights, who doesn't have water rights, and how do we resolve those issues and use that as a template and as a model for how we can address the larger issues. Thank you.
Candidate Sadhu.
Yes, I have said this before, that we know all the solutions for the water. All the stakeholders know it's the trust deficit which is not allowing us to reach out to those things and implement those. So I spent a couple of hours with Jefferson, Mr. Merle Jefferson and his team. There are a couple of solutions, because of lack of time, I'll just be brief, which is proposed by Lumbee Nation and could be a game changer. They are looking at diverting the water from before it hits the salt water back into the creeks to increase the in-stream flows. And the water level. And the second thing is storing in-stream water in-stream. Millions and millions of gallons can be stored there. Now, if we are able to implement that, I will be the first one to get this thing going, study, pilot program, and work with the stakeholders to implement one or two of these things, and that could solve big major hurdles. Thank you.
right, question number 6 will go first to candidate Larsen. What policies would you support to help provide affordable broadband access to all county residents and businesses?
Yeah, well, first, that's really, from my perspective, that's an infrastructure problem, and it's an infrastructure issue, and that is typically when we speak of infrastructure, we're talking about roads and bridges and ferries and water and sewer, but I believe that technology needs to be rolled right into the infrastructure question. And really, it's a matter of providing, developing contracts, and really we want to make it competitive. But we've got to get broadband out into the counties, and we need to build infrastructure to set it up for industry. There's a number of other issues relating to infrastructure that are equally as important, but broadband and technology is certainly one of them.
Candidate Boyle.
We definitely need to expand broadband use into the county and just grow the network. It's an economic driver for the county. It's kind of an equalizer for students in school systems. It is an infrastructure improvement, but it's going to get one that's going to return on the dollar for us and be more of an investment than just a construction project. So the simple answer is yes, we need broadband out into the county.
Candidate Sadhu.
Yes, I think this is a question of haves and have-nots. The digital economy, digital access is existential thing for the kids growing in those areas, businesses, people, because they are deprived of participation in our bigger economy. I think the industry has not taken it up because it doesn't fit their profit model. I think I will totally support the efforts by Port of Bellingham and PUD to create this infrastructure in our rural areas, and then we can find other operators for the last mile so that all those people have access to this thing. We can do wonders like what cell phone has done to the business or digital. We can do the same in our rural areas. Rural America is really falling behind because they don't have access, and federal government and the companies together have not looked at this problem and left it for local people to do it, and I will be the first one to really support that.
And Candidate Burke.
Yeah, so people in rural communities often have some broadband, and what they do have is very expensive, and it needs to be publicly supported because the companies are finding that it's less, their profit margin goes down the further out they have to go and the less customers they have. So it's really an issue of equity that needs to be publicly funded so that we have public trunk lines for broadband. We want to make sure that people in our rural communities are not vulnerable, and having a lot of times now even our telephones run over broadband lines. So it's an issue of safety as well, and it's also an issue of education equity because our schools need to make sure that they also have access to broadband. And I'll just leave it out there.
Okay, question number 7, which when we deal with this timing, if the timers can do 45 seconds instead of a minute, I can get 2 more questions in. Well,
we're just rattling on.
Otherwise, there's going to be dead airspace. So if the candidates agree and if the timers can do that, if I can do 45 seconds, we can get 2 more questions in. Okay. So this 45-second question will be for candidate Boyle first. What do you think the county should do about the current jail, specifically its size and location?
With 45 seconds, we'll be very clear. Yes, we should all just take one part of the question and answer it. Yeah. So we need a new jail. We don't need a bigger jail. We need a better jail. That jail should be located in in Bellingham. I want to be clear about that. That jail should be located in Bellingham. And it needs all those wraparound services to keep people out of jail. Right now, our jail is focused on incarceration, not on recovery. So we have those people in our jail for a couple days or a couple weeks, and we want to start that pathway of healing, not make that pathway more into destructive behavior. So we need a new jail, not a bigger jail, and we need that jail in Bellingham.
Candidate Sadhu.
Yes. First, we must fund the long-term care for addiction and mental health services. That should be our top priority. Second thing is alternates to incarceration. The third one is operating funds for detox, or the facility we are building with $10 million. And if there's money left over, we should look at brick and mortar solutions. Thank you.
Candidate Burke.
We need to get low-risk offenders and people with substance use disorder out of jail immediately, and we need to make sure that they have services in our community that they need, including long-term inpatient mental health and substance use disorder treatment. Our current jail is based on an old model of incarceration, and we need to look at a model of incarceration that not only holds people accountable, but also helps them get better. And so we want to make sure that we also have services in our jail for high-risk offenders. And to do this, we need to use data and a budget analysis to decide together if we want a new jail downtown or if we want to refurbish the current jail that we have, if that's even possible. The process needs to be transparent, it needs to be inclusive, and I think we can design something we can all be proud of.
Candidate Larsen.
This has been an issue for over 15 years. When I was on county council, this was addressed, and there's really been a significant distrust because the first time that we passed taxes for the jail, those funds were used for operations, and they weren't used for building infrastructure. I've been in the jail many times. Let me rephrase that. I've toured the jail many times, and what we do know is it's inhumane, it's unsafe, it's a liability trap, it's a money pit. It is a real big challenge, and what we need to do is get everybody together. I'd be willing to compromise. We really have to get even the political pressure associated with what we want and what we don't want. We need to get folks together and really understand that we need to solve this problem, and the only way we're going to do it is by bringing people together, being respectful about it, and coming up with a solution.
And this is the last question, and it'll first go to candidate Sadhu. What is the one core value that all of Whatcom County can support and agree on?
Say that again, please. Please.
What is the one core value that all of Whatcom County
yes.
can support and agree on?
This is that we must lower the temperature. We have forgotten the art of dialogue. We have a North County, we have a South County. We have people who've been promoting rural versus urban. We have even named solar energy is a liberal energy and petroleum is conservative energy. I think this must end, and I think people are tired. On both sides, people are tired. It needs a visionary leadership to bring people together and lower this temperature so we can talk to each other. Thank you.
Candidate Burke.
I think the one value that we can all agree on, especially in our county, because I think we're really special people, is equity. Not equality, not the same thing for everyone, but equity, so that we can all have equal access and equal results, have the same opportunities. We have people in our community who are vulnerable, and I think we all want to protect those individuals. I know through my work at Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services, we've certainly seen individuals who are extra vulnerable to violent crimes, and again, afraid to call law enforcement. And I think in our community, we want to come together and make sure that everyone is safe and there's equitable opportunities for everyone.
Candidate Larsen.
Well, my hope is what we can agree on is that we get rid of the political toxicity, and we get rid of it. We all love this community. As I mentioned, I was born here, I was raised here, I raised my family here. Nobody loves the community any more than anybody else. It's really an issue of how do we solve some of these issues? These issues are coming as a result of population growth and other things. Other communities experience it as well, but the only way we're going to be able to solve these is if we come together and we start focusing on ideas, not politics. And I think that can be done. That's one of the roles of the county executive. That's a nonpartisan position, and the county executive is responsible for sort of representing the county at the federal, state, and local levels with municipalities, and we really need to start bringing people together and using the best ideas to solve our problems.
And Candidate Boyle.
I think it's a simple answer of we're all in this together. There is no plan B. You know, this is the community we have, this is the environment we have, these are the people we have. I think it goes back to my earlier opening remarks where I believe that we all do better when we all do better. And that notion of lifting us, each of us up, having us each accomplish our dreams and our values is what's core. Because we all want good jobs, we all want a healthy environment, and we all want a future for our kids. And it's only by our unity that we get there. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go back to 1 minute for the closing. Timer's okay with that? I'm not going to cut the closing short.
It's a very talented group they have.
Yeah. So we'll start with candidate Burke. Your 1 minute closing statement, please.
So people have asked me, why in the world do you want to run for this position at this time? There's a lot going on. It's going to be pretty tough. And I can tell you that I actually feel deeply called to the position. I decided to run over a year ago. I should say I explored the idea of running over a year ago. My wife and I at the time had 4 small foster children with us, ages 6, 4.5, 2.5, and 5 months old. So running was simply not a possibility when the idea first entered my head as we were up to our I'd say over our heads, because they included lice when they came. But so I'm going to bring, at the time that they went back home, I decided then that this is how I can give back to our community, that this is what I know how to do. I know how to lead. I know how to bring people together. So I have great colleagues here, and I can just say with a clear vision and with 18 years of very directly and exactly transferable experience, I'm the right person at the right time for Whatcom County. Thanks.
Candidate Larsen.
Like every community, when a community starts growing, we start experiencing growing pains. And in Whatcom County, the population has increased 9% in just the last 5 years. This growth is going to continue. We can't stop it, so we've got to manage it smartly and appropriately. We've seen some of the downsides of this growth. Some of those issues we didn't even get a chance to talk about in this forum, but increased traffic congestion, lack of housing supply, especially for those in the middle and lower incomes, more homeless on our streets, and an increase in the demand for our health and human services. We're experiencing that daily. We all see that. We are also experiencing workforce development challenges and pressure on our infrastructure. This growth is putting negative pressures on our environment as well, and it's putting negative pressures on our water supply. I'm committed to tackling these challenges and any others that our community face. Anybody that knows me, they know I'm a person that get things done, that can get things done, and I'd like to do that for Whatcom County.
Candidate Boyle.
First of all, excuse me. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, or for this afternoon, and for giving us your time. Once again, for putting this together, and for those who are listening at home. It's your commitment and your energy gives those of us up front a lot of hope for what's possible for Whatcom County. In the work that I do, we have a little phrase that it's do your homework, know your facts, but it's passion that matters. And that is really what's going to change and move things forward. And I think the way I can demonstrate my passion for this job is how hard we're working for each and every vote. By the end of this weekend, our team, and some of them are out here today, I want to thank you all, will have knocked on 9,000 doors in every community in Whatcom County. It's a huge effort, a huge outreach. We've also been endorsed. I'm the only candidate who's been endorsed by labor. Not just one labor union, 10 labor unions. So I think I have the skills, the experience, and the drive, and I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
Candidate Sadhu.
50 years ago, the man landed on the moon today. And I graduated with a degree in physics and mathematics, same time, same year. I had a dream to come to America, to be part of American dream, and work as an engineer in this great country. I have lived in Whatcom County for 30 years, and I've volunteered for more than 10 nonprofit boards over this period. We need a visionary leadership and a long-term vision for our county. This is how I get things done. If you want flowers in your garden, you don't talk about flowers. You talk about soil, you talk about manure, you talk about the water, the sunshine, the patience you need. Flowers will come. You have to have a process. You need to understand the process, and I do. I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. If you would join me in thanking them for being here today and also for running for office.